In a galaxy teeming with countless civilizations, the rules of engagement were well established. Empires expanded, traded, or conquered, their dominion stretching across the stars like a tangled web of alliances and rivalries. Most species accepted the hierarchies and traditions of interstellar politics, most, but not all. Humanity was new to this cosmic stage, but they had already garnered a reputation for being wildly unpredictable and fiercely independent. They didn't bend to the norms, and they didn't care about protocols or propriety. While other species deliberated and debated, humanity acted. And when they acted, it was often with a level of audacity that left the galaxy either in awe or in shock. The reputation was deserved. Humans were known to risk everything, all for the sake of principle, or sometimes, just because they could. They weren't the most advanced, nor the most numerous, but what they lacked in numbers or technology, they made up for in grit. And the galaxy had begun to take notice. Still, for every species that admired humanity's spunk, there were others that saw them as an annoyance, a pest that needed to be put in its place. Then came the Xanathar Dominion. An ancient empire whose history was stained with the blood of those who dared to resist them. The Xanathar were the architects of conquest, renowned for their cold, methodical subjugation of hundreds of worlds. Their arrival at the edge of the Sol system was like a storm cloud on the horizon, a dark and ominous presence that signaled only one thing: submission or annihilation. The fleet they brought was colossal, a floating armada of death and power. Hulking warships, each the size of a small moon, bristled with weaponry beyond imagination. Their smaller cruisers and frigates moved like a swarm around these titans, ready to strike with the precision and lethality of a blade. Every vessel gleamed with the eerie, unyielding light of a species that had mastered the art of war. They had no need for diplomacy, they spoke with the language of dominance, and it was a language that all understood. The Xanathar came with one intent: subjugate Earth and add another jewel to their crown of conquest. To them, this was just another routine exercise, another minor skirmish in their long history of expansion. The message they sent to Earth was clear and concise, a broadcast that left no room for ambiguity: this is the Xanathar Dominion. Surrender your world and its resources, or face total annihilation. Resistance is futile, our victory is inevitable. Submit, and you may yet survive as part of our glorious empire. The response from Earth was unexpected. Instead of the panic or fear that typically greeted their arrival, there was laughter. Humanity's leaders, an odd mix of scientists, soldiers, and even a few rogue hackers, collectively decided on a single course of action: challenge accepted. A broadcast went out to the entire Xanathar fleet, relayed through every frequency, every channel they could hijack. A middle-aged woman, dressed in a simple leather jacket, leaned casually back in her chair, feet up on the console, and grinned into the camera. Her words were clear and carried the weight of an entire species' attitude: "Oh, you think you're hot sh*t, don't you? Newsflash, we don't give AF**ck. That message was followed by a chorus of similar sentiments from different parts of the globe, defiant, irreverent, and utterly unyielding. One particularly memorable transmission came from a group of students at a technical college who'd hacked into the Xanathar's internal communications, overlaying it with a raucous rendition of "We Will Rock You" by Queen. The Xanathar, who had faced down countless foes and had always seen fear reflected back at them, were momentarily stunned by what they were witnessing. Instead of terror, they saw amusement; instead of submission, they saw unbridled defiance. The Xanathar leaders, unaccustomed to this kind of response, sent out a second broadcast. The tone was more severe, almost incredulous: "Earth, you misunderstand the gravity of your situation. We have crushed countless civilizations greater than yours. This is your final warning: surrender, or face complete obliteration." Earth's reply was swift and came from an unmarked ship hovering just outside Mars' orbit. The camera panned around a cramped, dimly lit cockpit filled with humans in mismatched uniforms. The apparent leader, an older man with a scar running down his cheek and a cigarette dangling from his lips, looked directly into the lens. His voice was calm but filled with a steel-like resolve. "We heard you the first time. And here's our answer: we still don't give AF*ck. The Xanathar had never faced an opponent like this, a species that would rather laugh in the face of annihilation than bow down. For them, this wasn't just a challenge, it was a declaration of war. The Xanathar fleet moved into Earth's orbit like an iron fist closing around a fragile globe. They expected an easy, decisive victory, a quick show of force that would bring humanity to its knees. But the humans, true to their reputation, were not going to play by the rules. Almost as soon as the Xanathar ships settled into position, the chaos began. Humanity's initial strikes were a series of seemingly erratic, yet brilliantly coordinated attacks that defied every convention of interstellar warfare. Small human vessels, barely noticeable among the stars, darted in and out of the massive formation of Xanathar warships, launching electromagnetic pulse bursts that short-circuited systems, hacked into alien tech, and unleashed old-fashioned kinetic weaponry. One particularly audacious attack saw a small fleet of retrofitted cargo ships, laden with explosives and remote-piloted by hacked Xanathar drones, slam into one of the enemy's battleships, causing a cascade of explosions that lit up the sky over Earth. The Xanathar, accustomed to precise and orderly engagements, found themselves bewildered by the sheer unpredictability of human tactics. What should have been a simple conquest was turning into a chaotic brawl. Alien commanders shouted conflicting orders, the once perfect lines of their fleet broke into a frenzy as ships maneuvered erratically to avoid attacks from directions they hadn't even considered possible. Confusion spread like a virus through the ranks of the Xanathar. They were a force of overwhelming strength, but this was unlike anything they had encountered, an enemy who fought with the ingenuity of a cornered beast. Earth's military strategy was like nothing the galaxy had seen before, a true, no-rules, combat doctrine. They didn't just engage in physical warfare, they attacked the Xanathar on every conceivable front. Cyber warfare became a frontline battle, with human hackers exploiting every vulnerability in the Xanathar systems. Command and control ships, vital to maintaining the disciplined formation of the fleet, suddenly found themselves locked out of their own networks. Orders went unheeded, and ships went dark. Some of the most advanced warships in the Xanathar fleet began firing on their allies, their systems overridden by Earth's best and most creative hackers. Meanwhile, in space, small, nimble human fighters employed hit-and-run tactics reminiscent of ancient pirate skirmishes on Earth's seas. They would strike suddenly, then disappear into the black void before the Xanathar could organize a counterattack. It was a style of warfare that capitalized on humanity's unpredictability, adaptability, and absolute refusal to follow any conventional playbook. One moment, the Xanathar were being hit by stealth fighters deploying drones that detonated on impact, the next, they faced hacking assaults that scrambled their internal sensors, creating phantom fleets and ghost signals. In the midst of this chaos, a group known as the Outliers became legends. They were an elite squadron of renegade pilots and tech geniuses, known for their disregard for protocol and unmatched skill in both flight and hacking. Commanded by a former smuggler turned military strategist, the Outliers were tasked with an almost impossible mission: cripple the Xanathar flagship, the Void Reaper, a behemoth of a ship that served as the fleet's nerve center. Using an old mining asteroid as cover, the Outliers approached the Void Reaper undetected. They had studied the Xanathar's movements meticulously, exploiting every momentary lapse in their otherwise formidable defenses. As they neared their target, they executed a maneuver that defied every known principle of physics and logic, a complex series of barrel rolls, sharp dives, and a sudden deceleration that left even the most seasoned Xanathar pilots baffled. They bypassed the main defensive grid and fired a series of concentrated plasma torpedoes directly into the ship's exposed engine core. The impact was cataclysmic. The flagship shuddered, its lights flickering as a cascade of explosions tore through its hull. Fires erupted, venting atmosphere and debris into space. The Void Reaper, the symbol of Xanathar invincibility, began to list and drift, crippled beyond repair. The sight of their most powerful ship, once thought indestructible, now crippled and burning, sent a shockwave through the Xanathar ranks. For the first time, the invaders felt something alien to them: fear. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity, watching from cities and shelters, erupted in cheers and defiant roars. The impossible had happened. they had landed a decisive blow against an overwhelming foe. The outliers became instant heroes, their reckless bravery and unyielding spirit igniting hope in the hearts of every human across the planet. But humanity wasn't done. With their confidence soaring and their adversaries shaken, they turned their attention to another powerful tool in their arsenal: psychological warfare. Humanity began broadcasting to the Xanathar fleet transmissions that were equal parts propaganda and psychological torment. The messages ranged from mocking commentary to outright taunting, with phrases like, "What's the matter? Afraid of some monkeys with rocks?" and "Your mighty Void Reaper looks like it could use a tow." These broadcasts, often accompanied by images of defeated Xanathar ships interspersed with Earth's own iconography of defiance, began to demoralize the alien fleet. The Xanathar, who had never faced an opponent that laughed in the face of death, found their resolve crumbling. For every threat they issued, a dozen human voices responded with mockery and contempt. Even their most feared commanders were not immune to the ridicule, with Earth hackers cleverly manipulating their own broadcasts to include humorous subtitles that undercut their authority. The once feared Xanathar fleet was now gripped by uncertainty and frustration. They had underestimated their enemy. They had thought themselves untouchable, and now they were embroiled in a war of attrition against a species that fought with its heart as much as its technology. The tables were turning, and for the first time in a millennium, the Xanathar Dominion faced the possibility of defeat. The Xanathar Dominion, accustomed to swift and decisive victories, was growing increasingly frustrated. The initial plan had been simple: intimidate, subjugate, and move on. But these humans had proven themselves to be more than just stubborn. They were unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless. The Xanathar commanders, humiliated by the defeat of their flagship and the continuing disruptions to their fleet, decided it was time to escalate. They sent in reinforcements, massive dreadnoughts, battle carriers, and a fresh wave of smaller attack craft, all designed to overwhelm and obliterate any lingering hope of resistance. The Xanathar tactics changed as well. No longer content to merely target military installations, they began aiming at civilian structures, cities, and even hospitals. The intention was clear: break human morale through fear and terror. Entire cities were targeted from orbit, massive energy blasts were unleashed, flattening buildings, scorching the earth, and leaving desolate craters where vibrant communities had once thrived. In a chilling broadcast, the Xanathar warned that humanity's defiance would lead to their extinction. But Earth's response remained unchanged, unbending and defiant. Faced with the increased brutality, humanity shifted its own strategies. The answer to the Xanathar's escalation was a relentless counter-counter strategy that embodied Earth's guerrilla spirit and refusal to conform. Every Xanathar attack was met with a series of cunning responses. The humans began deploying massive decoys, fake cities constructed out of lightweight materials that emitted heat signatures, false energy readings, and even broadcasted fake communications. When the Xanathar moved to strike these seemingly valuable targets, they would find themselves ensnared in carefully laid traps. Sabotage became a preferred tactic. Under the cover of darkness and the distraction of skirmishes, small human teams infiltrated the Xanathar ranks. They disabled engines, set timed explosives in fuel storage compartments, and even hijacked smaller craft, turning them against their own fleet. The Xanathar soon learned that no victory was simple. Each step forward came with unexpected consequences: ships that would drift off course, unable to navigate because their systems had been subtly corrupted, supply lines that vanished, and entire squadrons that found themselves caught in meticulously planned ambushes. Then came the pivotal moment, a turning point battle that would be etched into the annals of both human and Xanathar history. The Xanathar, frustrated and eager to end the war swiftly, decided to bring their full might to bear on Earth's orbit. What they hadn't anticipated was humanity's knack for improvisation. Using their extensive knowledge of the local celestial environment, human commanders devised a daring and seemingly suicidal plan. They decided to weaponize asteroids. A hidden fleet of human ships, loaded with advanced magnetic towing systems and disguised within the asteroid belt, activated. They nudged several enormous asteroids out of their natural orbits, directing them towards the Xanathar fleet. At first, the aliens dismissed the asteroids as harmless debris. But when the rocks began accelerating and changing course to follow their ships, panic set in. The Xanathar warships scrambled to avoid the incoming bombardment, but the chaotic movements led to devastating collisions. A few were able to shoot the asteroids apart, only for the smaller fragments to rain down like deadly shrapnel. In the midst of the chaos, swarms of human kamikaze drones emerged from hidden positions on Earth's surface, zooming toward the disoriented Xanathar ships. The drones weren't high-tech or sophisticated, they were built quickly, from anything available, a blend of hacked-together parts, explosives, and raw desperation. But they were effective. The swarms overwhelmed point defenses, slamming into Xanathar vessels, blowing holes in their hulls, and triggering secondary explosions that tore through the alien fleet. The once dominant Xanathar found themselves in a nightmare scenario. Several key ships, including 2 battle carriers, were destroyed, their shattered remains falling towards Earth's atmosphere like twisted meteors. The humans had not only survived but managed to turn the tide in a way that was incomprehensible to the invaders. It wasn't just the sheer audacity of the asteroid bombardment or the kamikaze drones, it was the humans' reckless ingenuity and their willingness to sacrifice anything to protect their home. The psychological impact on the Xanathar was profound. They had never faced such an opponent, a species that turned desperation into strength, chaos into strategy. The Xanathar commanders, once so confident in their technological and numerical superiority, began to sense an unfamiliar and unnerving feeling, fear. The humans weren't fighting for domination, glory, or conquest, they were fighting because they had nothing to lose. Every battle, every skirmish, every moment of defiance carried with it a message the Xanathar could no longer ignore. This was a fight to the end, and humanity was more than willing to drag them down into the abyss. The Xanathar fleet, once poised to crush Earth underfoot, now found itself hesitant, uncertain. Their tactics, once so effective against other species, seemed almost laughably inadequate against these unpredictable, maddened creatures. For the first time in centuries, the Xanathar realized they might not just lose a battle, they could lose everything. The very essence of their dominion was being challenged, not by a superior force, but by something far more dangerous, a relentless will and a burning desire to be free. The news of Earth's defiance spread like wildfire across the galaxy. From the crowded markets of the outer rim worlds to the aristocratic courts of core planets, the story of humanity's unexpected resistance against the Xanathar dominion was on every tongue. The whispers carried with them an electric charge. Could it be possible? An unknown species, technologically inferior and vastly outnumbered, standing toe-to-toe with one of the galaxy's most feared empires? For countless civilizations living under the oppressive boot of the Xanathar or other similar powers, the story of Earth's fight was a spark of something dangerously potent, hope. The Xanathar Council, monitoring the spread of this news, recognized the threat. Rebellion was a contagion that could not be allowed to spread. If Earth continued to defy them, it might inspire other oppressed species to rise up, to realize that perhaps the Xanathar weren't as invincible as they had always seemed. In hushed conversations across the Dominion's command centers, the word human was becoming synonymous with resistance. It was a development they hadn't anticipated and one they were woefully unprepared to counter. The stakes had escalated beyond the mere conquest of a single world. This was about maintaining the very fabric of fear and control that held their empire together. But if the Xanathar were unsettled, humanity was just getting started. With each passing day, Earth turned the psychological screws tighter. In a bold move, human strategists began an extensive campaign of misinformation, utilizing hacked communication channels, deep space drones, and AI-driven algorithms to flood the Xanathar network with false intelligence. Reports of phantom fleets appearing at the edges of sensor ranges, distress signals from non-existent ships, and rumors of entire squadrons gone rogue sowed confusion and distrust within the Xanathar ranks. Ships were pulled from key positions to chase these ghosts, only to find nothing but empty space and dead signals. The Xanathar commanders began second-guessing their own data, paralyzed by the fear that every move they made could be walking into another trap. Humanity also launched an unprecedented propaganda assault. They hacked into Xanathar broadcasts, projecting images of human fighters laughing in the face of danger, daring the Xanathar to come and try again. They spread tales of the Earth resistance, the humans who don't give AF**CK, mocking the Xanathar and ridiculing their supposed superiority. Entire Xanathar crews started seeing ghost ships, illusory vessels that seemed to blink in and out of existence on their screens, convincing them they were surrounded by enemies. Some fired upon these phantoms in panic, wasting ammunition and exposing their positions. As frustration and paranoia spread, discipline broke down. The once tightly controlled military machine began to show cracks. Within the Xanathar ranks, dissent simmered. The younger commanders, those not yet hardened by centuries of conquest, began to murmur amongst themselves. What was the point of this prolonged war against a species that refused to submit, that fought like cornered animals with nothing left to lose? They had lost friends, comrades, and respect in battles that should have been easy. Now, the Dominion's finest soldiers were jumping at shadows, questioning their leaders, and quietly pondering the futility of continuing this campaign. The human strategy was working, not just winning battles, but eroding the very foundation of the Xanathar's belief in their own superiority. The disillusionment wasn't just tactical, it was cultural. For millennia, the Xanathar had operated on the principle that fear was the ultimate weapon. Fear kept enemies at bay, kept subjugated planets in line, and ensured that the status quo remained unchallenged. But humanity was rewriting the rules. They didn't bow to fear, they wielded it like a hammer, shattering the Xanathar's tightly controlled order. The alien commanders began to see their troops' morale plummeting. Each failed engagement, every lost ship, and every psychological attack from humanity was a weight on their soldiers' backs. A weariness spread among the ranks, a realization that they were fighting an enemy that could not be understood, much less predicted. Amidst all this turmoil, humanity delivered a masterstroke. A global broadcast from Earth reached across the stars, breaking through jamming signals and encrypted barriers. It wasn't a grand speech or a lengthy plea for allies, it was a simple, unadorned statement that encapsulated the human spirit. The screen showed a mosaic of faces from all walks of life, soldiers, children, elders, everyday people from every corner of Earth, standing together. Then a voice, firm and unwavering, spoke directly to the camera. We don't stop. We don't care. We don't give AF**CK. The message reverberated across the galaxy, a seismic shockwave that shattered the carefully constructed illusion of the Xanathar's invulnerability. It wasn't just a message to the Xanathar, it was a call to every species, every world living under tyranny. And it worked. From the icy moons of the outer systems to the desert worlds on the galactic fringes, the words echoed in 1,000 different languages. The oppressed began to whisper among themselves, wondering if maybe, just maybe, they too could stand up. Perhaps they could resist, fight back, and reclaim their destinies. For the Xanathar, the psychological battle was proving even more devastating than the physical one. This was no longer a matter of firepower or strategic positioning. Humanity had proven that sometimes, the most formidable weapon was a refusal to bend, an unyielding middle finger raised to the universe. And as the Xanathar ships drifted in confused formation, struggling to regroup, a deep and uncomfortable realization set in. They weren't just fighting humans, they were fighting an idea. And ideas, as they were beginning to understand, were far harder to kill. The Xanathar were left with a chilling choice: continue this war, risk becoming the catalyst for a galactic uprising, or retreat and face the humiliation of defeat. But as the humans had already shown, they wouldn't stop, they wouldn't care, and they certainly wouldn't give AF**CK. The stakes were now galactic, and everyone, even the most powerful empire, was starting to understand that the cost of underestimating Earth might be far greater than they had ever imagined. The Xanathar, humiliated by their inability to conquer a seemingly primitive world, decide to gamble everything on one final, devastating assault. Their war council, exhausted and desperate, commits the entirety of their remaining forces to a full-scale attack on Earth. This is to be a last stand, a definitive show of force to finally crush humanity's stubborn resistance. The order goes out, and every remaining Xanathar warship in the quadrant, dreadnoughts, cruisers, and fighters, gathers for the ultimate push. The Armada looms on the edge of Earth's orbit, blocking out the stars with their sheer numbers. The plan is simple: overwhelm Earth with raw power, bombard the surface, and obliterate any resistance. The Xanathar are done with strategy. They aim to burn Earth to ash and be done with it. Humanity, battered but defiant, prepares for what could be their final stand. Every able-bodied person on Earth is mobilized. Spaceports churn out makeshift fighters and drones around the clock. The United Earth Command broadcasts messages across the planet, urging citizens to brace for impact, to fight to the last breath. For the first time, there is a moment of palpable fear, a flicker of doubt. Even the most hardened soldiers can see the enormity of the fleet descending upon them. Yet, as that moment of dread spreads, it is quickly replaced by an unyielding resolve. The humans dig in, setting up every defensive measure possible. They know that if they fall, the galaxy's last hope of resisting the Xanathar's tyranny falls with them. The skies light up as the Xanathar launch their initial wave. Swarms of fighters streak through the atmosphere, followed by planet-cracking bombs and energy lances that light up the orbital battlefields. Earth's defenders fight back fiercely, but the Xanathar's numbers are overwhelming. Explosions bloom across the sky as ships on both sides are obliterated in fiery bursts. On the ground, defense cannons roar, and fighter squadrons scramble in desperate maneuvers. For every Xanathar ship that goes down, another seems to take its place. Humanity fights tooth and nail, employing every trick, every trap, every ounce of defiance they have. But slowly, inevitably, it looks like the tide is turning in favor of the Xanathar. Then, at the peak of the chaos, humanity reveals its trump card. The world had been prepared for this, and deep within the caverns of Earth, the last-ditch plan is set into motion. Buried under the Andes, a hidden weapon, codenamed Pandora, is activated. It isn't a massive cannon or a doomsday bomb but a device unlike anything the Xanathar have encountered, a gravitational flux generator. With a blinding surge of power, it bends spacetime itself, distorting the gravitational fields around Earth's orbit. Xanathar ships, caught in the gravitational waves, are pulled into chaotic orbits, crashing into each other or being flung out of formation. Suddenly, the battlefield turns from a massacre to a maelstrom. Xanathar warships, unable to maintain stable positions, find their firing solutions failing. Their massive dreadnoughts collide with their cruisers, and their fighters spiral out of control. The humans, who had adapted to the gravitational flux using their own modified systems, begin a counterattack. The Outliers, that same elite squadron that had struck fear into the Xanathar earlier, dive into the chaos, launching pinpoint attacks on crippled enemy ships. Improvised human vessels dart in and out, exploiting the chaos, smashing into Xanathar warships with kamikaze strikes, while missile salvos find their marks on vulnerable targets. The Xanathar realize too late that they've been outmaneuvered again. Their fleet, the pride of their empire, is breaking apart. Panic ripples through their ranks. The great armada they'd assembled is reduced to a disjointed collection of ships, trapped in a gravitational nightmare. Communications break down, orders get lost, and for the first time in their long history, the Xanathar commanders feel true fear. The once unthinkable is happening. They are losing to the humans, these unpredictable, infuriating beings who simply won't break. As the Xanathar dreadnoughts begin to retreat, realizing that further battle is pointless and their losses too great, they leave behind wreckage and ruins, monuments to their hubris and underestimation. Those who manage to flee are a shadow of their former might, nursing the shame of having been outwitted and outfought by an opponent they deemed inferior. Earth, battered but unbroken, stands victorious. The skies clear of enemy ships, and humanity takes a collective breath, looking up at the stars with a new understanding of their place among them. The aftermath of the battle echoes across the galaxy. The news spreads like wildfire. The Xanathar have been defeated by a backwater planet that refused to bow. A galactic empire, long thought invincible, had been brought low by a species that, as they discovered too late, simply didn't give a**ck. And now, the message to all sentient beings across the stars was unmistakable: Earth was not to be trifled with. They had faced the worst the galaxy could throw at them and had come out stronger, more unified than ever. In a final act of defiance, Earth broadcasts a new message to the entire galaxy. A visual of a young human, battle-worn yet fiercely proud, appears on screens across 1,000 worlds. With a calm and confident gaze, they speak directly to anyone watching. Anyone else want to try us? We still don't give AF**CK. The message is clear, bold, and unmistakable. Earth will not be a pawn in someone else's game. The broadcast ends, and the universe takes notice. In the ashes of the Xanathar defeat, a new force has risen, one driven not by conquest or domination but by an indomitable spirit. And that, more than any superweapon or fleet, is what makes humanity truly dangerous. As the stars burn on in the infinite night, other empires and species begin to wonder what might happen if they, too, decide to challenge Earth. They know now that, win or lose, humanity will always stand its ground, laugh in the face of the impossible, and, above all, never give AF**CK.